Welcome to the BingeWatchers Tarantino-a-thon. We're going to be reviewing all the Quentin Tarantino movies because Quentin Tarantino has got to be one of the greatest directors of all time. You can tell when a director is good when you can look at a movie and be like, yeah, Tarantino directed that. So we're starting with his first film, Reservoir Dogs. Quick advertisement, if you love the movie Reservoir Dogs, check out Jake Harness's short film based off of Reservoir Dogs. It's pretty good.
Hit me with that plug. Like Evan said, we're doing Reservoir Dogs, and probably the majority of Quentin Tarantino's movies. I was gonna say the good ones, but there isn't a bad one. So I guess we're doing all of them. Pretty much follows Mr. Brown, Mr. Orange, Mr. Blonde, Mr. White, Mr. Pink, Steve Buscemi, Harvey Keitel, Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, and then Quentin Tarantino himself. They play like these mobster type people, and one of them is undercover, and they don't know which one. I don't want to spoil it too. Oh, the movie came out. When did this movie come out?
92?
Okay, this movie came out over 20 years ago. If you haven't seen this movie,
just watch it now.
This is your fault.
Yeah, watch this movie, okay?
Why do you even click on this? Why are you clicking on a movie review if you ain't even seen the movie? What are you doing, dude? What I really love with Quentin Tarantino's movies, and you can see it in this movie, you see him start to shape this style. Quentin Tarantino, he likes to keep things close angles, and when he does do far stuff, it's from a certain perspective. Like when he keeps things close, it's like it's close that you kind of get a feeling for the actors. I'd say it's like 35 millimeters in lens perspective or whatever, but it's close that he likes to keep the frames so you kind of get a connection with the characters. Hardly ever really wide shots. It's generally all kind of paced. Also, he likes to use different angles that are not necessarily used more often. The trunk shot is in almost every single one of his movies. I don't think it's in Django.
Because there were no cars.
It might be, like there might be something like that, but
Maybe
there's always in most of Quentin Tarantino's movies, there's always a shot where the camera is inside the trunk of a car, and it's always two characters or three characters opening up the trunk to take something out of said trunk. You see this in Reservoir Dogs. In fact, I actually did that on the film that got plugged. Hit him up with that plug, boy.
So you're like, Quentin Tarantino, I love his style of filmmaking because of the cinematography he uses. The reason I love Tarantino is because Tarantino has like the best dialogue in his movies ever. Like normally,
oh yeah.
Like in a movie, like let's say we were to do another crime movie, okay, they would barely go into detail on the setup on who's getting named who, but in Reservoir Dogs, they're able to make like a 3-minute scene out of that, and it's probably like one of my favorite scenes in the entire movies,
I like how all the characters have a connection. What you see when you watch a Quentin Tarantino movie is you see this gritty action, and you see kind of the action crime genre perpetrated at its best. You're seeing filmmaking at its like peak performance here, because you're seeing characters that relate to each other. Like right out of the gate, you see these people who are friends. That because there's always when you make a movie, there's always rules that you have to follow. You have to draw an audience in. It's called viewer retention. This is where within the first 10 minutes, you should be interested and not want to click away from the movie or stop watching the movie. I guess if you're watching it online, it's easier to do this than in a theater, but they try to keep it all intact. So in the first 10 minutes of the film, you're given this storyline of all these friends. They've known each other for a long time. They all have inside jokes. They have a story that is already being told. And you see, like, when you see Steve Buscemi's character, Mr. Pink, when you see him talk about how he doesn't tip and how he thinks that he shouldn't have to tip because the government or the world or whatever says he should. and how it should be the quality of service. You're given this idea that this character, he values money, and his friends around him are they look down at that, and I guess what I'm getting at here is you see a connection of characters. Took me a while there. I was having a stroke.
To summarize it up, Tarantino doesn't have these flat characters. Each character's got something to them. I'm going to use anime as an example. I don't know why I'm talking about this in a Tarantino way, but this is the thing like that
Well, you can
with
see,
anime
yeah.
these days, that I don't get why people do this. They take a character in, let's say, a popular show, and they give them one trait, but the fan base, they don't have any other traits to work with, so they just explode that one trait into making it all about the character. I'm like, really? That's all this character has to offer? They do so and such, they like such and such, really? The thing about Tarantino characters is you can never point to a character and say, yeah, that's that guy. No. Like,
Well, I mean, that's where you have to know somebody by their name. Like, that's why, like, you have to know, like, the characters' names. If you're like, yeah, and then that one guy who does this, it's like, which guy? They all do that because all the characters have something in common with each other, and all the characters are their people, and you can feel that they're people. Their dialogue is so good, and the way they portray themselves, and the way Quentin Tarantino does a job at that is by making everything how you would talk to your friends. Like, you can tell that it seems natural when these characters are talking to each other. It's almost like if you were talking to like a friend from school or whatever, or like a friend that you just have, you're not going to be like super like stone faced with the dialogue. You're gonna be like nicknames and like insults and like jabs at each other, like joking around and stuff, and because that's what friends do. And when you see this in the film, you can tell that he knows how to come up with a storyline.
the best part about the dialogue is it sounds like a conversation between two characters. Like, half the time I'll go like, are they improvising this, or is this all written down? Because this seems pretty real.
Yeah.
The best example of this would be at the beginning when they're talking about the song, like a virgin, what it means and what that means. Or whenever he's talking about why he doesn't tip. I'm like, holy crap, not only does that sound believable, but it sounds like he's just stating what he believes, not what some paper tells him to
Yeah,
say.
it doesn't seem scripted. In fact, it almost sounds like it's improv. Like, it's very well done. Like, it's really well done. It's very well done. I don't know how many times I have to say it.
Reservoir Dogs, it's very well done.
It's a good movie. It's a fantastic movie.
Jake, what's got to be one of your favorite scenes of Reservoir Dogs?
I really like it's after the opener. It's right after they talk about tipping and like a virgin and all that stuff. It's when it cuts to the guy bleeding out in the car. In fact, this was a high part in in my one film. Hit it with the plug, man. What do you know, dude? I am just promoting this so much.
You know what I wish you would have said in that? Yeah, say it with me. You're gonna be okay. Say the goddamn words.
But I really like that shot. I like when the guy who is the traitor, if you could, the undercover guy is what I'm getting at. I like when he is like leaned over, he's like leaned over, and he's like bleeding out in that warehouse, and Mr. White is hovering over him, and he's just trying to spend time with him. And they start to get this connection and stuff. And even later on, when because Mr. White is saying like, hey, we have to find out who this traitor is. But when he finds out who the traitor is and how the traitor is actually this guy he's been helping stay alive, he stops wanting to actually kill the traitor because he feels this connection, and you feel that connection because they grow this bond and they become friends.
That's what's so good about it. It's like they're not one-dimensional mobsters. Because you see a mobster in a movie today, they barely got any lines. They show up, they shoot. They're supposed to make them badasses, but here you've got people just doing their job. It's just another day at work. It's like if you were at the office and somebody jammed the copier, but instead of a jammed copier, one of your guys is bleeding on the floor. And we're all trying to figure out who jammed the copier here.
I also really like I have to do it again. I really like the trunk scene.
Yeah.
Fun fact that is also used in another film that I just so happen to be in correlation with. Link in the description.
Click the picture on the left.
So I used the trunk scene as well because it's just so memorable. And it stands out, and I really like that because you don't know what they're looking at, but they just start smiling, and then you see them, you see it just cut. It doesn't pan or anything; it just cuts, and it shows the cop inside there. I also really like when the one guy is talking. God, which one is it? I totally forget which one.
What?
Oh yeah, it's the undercover guy when he's making up
Mr.
that
Orange.
story.
Mr.
Yeah,
Orange.
when he's making up the story about going into the bathroom with all the cops and
I
stuff.
loved that scene.
I really like that. I think that's really well done. But I'll stop talking and I'll let you talk.
Oh no, talk all you want, man. This is your time to shine. You love this movie
No,
more.
man. No, man. You talk.
Okay, your favorite scene was the bleeding out in the back of the car, and I love that scene too, but it's not my favorite scene. I would say my favorite scene of Reservoir Dogs would probably be... Give me a moment to think here, I'll just cut to it. It's where they're picking out names before the setup, because...
Yeah.
And it's got my favorite line of the entire movie in there. Your name's Mr. Pink. Why do I gotta be Mr. Pink? Because you're a faggot. Now shut up. You can tell dialogue is good when a director laughs at his own lines. It is hilarious. Like, because most movies today would skip over that scene entirely. It's like, oh, they're just naming each other. We don't need to. We'll give them like 20 seconds in here. They make a 3-minute scene out of it, and it's genius. Because Tarantino knows how to take stuff you would normally leave out and make it great. That's why I love him. He just does things that you wouldn't expect from a director at all. He just does his own thing and he does it well. That's why that's my favorite scene.
Yeah, I really like that. I like how everything, it has no real rhyme or reason to it. Like everything seems unexpected. Like they're really, like, you can see there's a setup, because it's it's his first movie. You have a lot to learn from or whatever. But here, it is very straightforward compared to his later films, but it still doesn't have this just set up line of, yeah, let's go do this, let's go do that, let's go do this. It's all, you're on the ride with him. Like, it's all an adventure with you.
Well, we gotta talk about, the most remembered scene in this movie, the torture scene.
They cut
They cut a dude's ear off. Holy shit.
They cut the cop's ear off, and they don't censor it or anything.
Yeah,
they just straight up show you cut this guy's ear off. Yeah, you don't even expect it.
But what makes the scene so much better is that he's just dancing along, he's just jamming out because he's having fun. But at the same time, he's also torturing a dude. Like, and when he goes out to get to the trunk to go get something out of the kerosene out of the trunk, and he comes back and he's just still jamming out. I don't know why. I always laugh at the torture scene. Not because the guy's getting tortured, okay? I'm not that fucking insane, but I just laugh because, 1 minute he's just jamming out, next thing you know, Mr. Orange opens his entire clip on him. I'm like, well, that happened. It's a good movie. I mean...
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie. It's a Tarantino movie. So obviously you're gonna have the N-word, you're gonna see some violence. It's a Tarantino movie, for God's sakes. You can tell what he wants in his movies right from the get-go.
They don't hold back.
I'm gonna use your short film as an example. I like the scene where they're in the...
Link in the description.
I like the scene where everybody's standing in the they're standing in the warehouse together. They're all just pointing fingers at who's who's the officer, who's the cop, and then they all pull their guns out. That was a good scene. I'm like, oh God, what's gonna happen here? So basically, they have their standoff, but then, one trigger finger leads to another, and now it's just Mr. White and it's Mr. Orange. But, the cops are coming, and then Mr. Orange is like, hey, I'm the cop, and Mr. White, he just doesn't know what to do, so he just holds him in his arms, and he just puts his gun to his head. I don't think he was intending to kill him, he's just using him so the cops don't unload on him when they come in there. But, what I loved, this is what I love. The camera pans up to where you can only see Mr. White, and Mr. Orange, he's just down there, and you're like, well, he's got his gun on him, what's gonna happen? And you don't see the police, but you know that they're across the warehouse, and they tell him, drop your weapon. But of course, this doesn't happen, and they open fire on him, and then you're like, so, are they dead? Did they make it out? What happened? Then it just goes to black, and you're just wondering, oh, dang. This is what makes Reservoir Dogs a good movie. Right from the get-go, Tarantino knew what he wanted to establish to his movie viewers. Because he himself says in many interviews, I make my movies for me. I don't make it for some giant faceless herd of an audience that I don't know. Most people say, I like to reflect on my early work to see how much better I've gotten. Tarantino's like, yeah, I'm still good.
Quentin Tarantino's like, I was good from the start. There really isn't a dud.
He didn't have to go through trial and error. He just knew. And
yeah.
The best part is, he didn't go through filming school. He said, no, screw that. I'm just going to work at a porno movie theater and save money and buy a camera. And that's what happened. That's why I love Tarantino. He just says, screw the system. I'm going to do it my way.
In finale, out of our awful ranking system, what do you give this movie? It's not that bad. What do you give this movie?
I'm gonna give Reservoir Dogs an A. I would give it an A+, but that's not my interpretation of Like a Virgin. I'm joking. It's a good movie, okay? Reservoir Dogs gets an A. I don't usually give an A+,
Oh yeah, I'm gonna give it an A too.
Yeah, because no movie is perfect, but when you've got a movie that's just focused around its characters, you can't pick apart at it. It's like, oh, the movie didn't have this in it. Well, was it supposed to? Did Tarantino establish that was supposed to be in the movie? No, so shut up. It's a great movie.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Reservoir Dogs. It's a good movie.
Reservoir Dogs by Quentin Tarantino.
Get it if you haven't seen it.
This has been the Binge Watchers. I'm Jake.
And I'm Evan. Throw in one more advertisement.
And make sure you check out that dope movie, man. Like, make sure you click on that, fam. Link in the description, baby. Come on, baby. Yeah, like a virgin touch for the very first time. Hopefully you click on that link, man. You touch that link for the very first time, baby. Yeah. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. That's Instagram.com/JakeHarness. Make sure you friend me on Snapchat. That's Snapchat / I'm Jake Harness. Make sure you find me on Twitter. That's Twitter.com/FrostyJake. And YouTube.com. That's YouTube.com/HDJake. There you go. Goodbye, everyone.
I hate myself now.